I wanted to sit down today and talk a little bit about blighted ovums. This is a form of miscarriage where you're pregnant, your body is producing HCG, but when they go to look at an ultrasound, it's just an empty gestational sac and there is no baby inside. So this just happened to me. Basically, I was going on a trip to New York with my family, and for the past couple days before it, I was having food aversion, the same kind of feeling that I had when I was pregnant with my daughter. So I was like, you know what, before we go on our trip, I need to take a pregnancy test because I feel weird. And that night I sat down, took a pregnancy test, and it was positive like immediately before the test line could even come up. The control line was like off the charts, so dark. And I was like, first I it was upside down and I thought like I had just a faint line, but that was actually the test line. So then I was like, oh my gosh, like I haven't gotten a postpartum period for the 15, almost 16 months that I've had my daughter. I've been exclusively breastfeeding her. So I was like, I have no idea how far along I am. Like I don't have a period to base it off of. I just didn't know. So I was like so excited. I'm like, oh my God, maybe I'm further along than I really think I am. And anyway, while we were in New York, I decided to make an appointment and go see if I can get a dating scan to see how far along I was, because it was driving me nuts. I was feeling so nauseous and I was feeling like all the pregnancy symptoms. I was, just so excited. I was just thinking Aspen is going to be a big sister and, all the things you think when you see a positive pregnancy test. And I went into my dating scan. I was alone because of COVID, and I could tell that something was wrong when she was like looking, and she's like, you know what? And this was an abdominal ultrasound, because I was like, I think I'm far along. Like, let's just do an abdominal because I don't want to do the vaginal one. And she's like, if I don't see anything, then we're going in. And I'm like, that's fine with me. So I was so hopeful. I was like, it's gonna be fine. My tests are so dark and I'm feeling pregnant. So I just thought it was gonna be okay. Anyways, she's like, I don't see anything in there. And then we did the vaginal ultrasound and she said the same thing. She's like, so I see a gestational sac. I don't see a baby. I don't see a yolk sac. I don't see anything in there. So she showed me, because, she was on like a little screen that was facing away from me. She showed me and I was like, oh, so it's a blighted ovum. And she was like, how did you know what that's called? Like, yes, you're so smart. And I was like, I just know because I do lots of research on pregnancy. And before I went into my first ultrasound, like I knew exactly what to look for. I did so much research. I'm like, okay, so this is this and this is this and this is, indicative of this. And I don't know. I just felt like I had a good idea of what you should see. And I knew what I was looking at wasn't what you should see, especially based off of how dark my pregnancy test was. I was thinking my HCG must be high. I'm thinking 6 to 8 weeks, and you should definitely see a heartbeat by then, and I know that. So we flew home the next day. We actually got flights a day early. They upgraded us for free, which was amazing of the airline to do. And we went home. I made an appointment with my midwife office. My midwife that I had for my daughter, she doesn't actually practice anymore, but I went to that office. And it was 2 days later that she was able to finally see me, and she said the same thing. And then they took my blood. My HCG was like 50,000. It was so high, and there was no reason why we shouldn't see a baby in there. So I went back a couple days later to take, for them to take more blood, and it was 35,000. So it was going down, which was great. Like that's what we wanted. Or maybe the first time wasn't 50,000, but it was like high 40s. Anyway, the point is my HCG was going down, and that was good. That was what you want, because in this kind of circumstance, there's not a baby in there. So your body, basically, the sperm and the egg meet, and there's some sort of chromosomal abnormality, whether it's the egg or the sperm or just a combination of both of them. Your body knows, like, or the sperm and the egg, they just know, like, this isn't gonna work. So with my first pregnancy, I had a miscarriage, a very early miscarriage, where I had pregnancy tests and then I had bleeding. And before I even got to go to the doctor, I started bleeding that morning. So I went in, it was just a very different situation. This time I went in thinking like that there was gonna be a baby in there, and there wasn't. But that didn't mean I wasn't pregnant. I was pregnant. My body was thinking there was a baby in there, but there wasn't a baby. And it's so confusing, and it's upsetting, obviously. I think everybody's allowed to have their own definition of miscarriage. My personal definition is, you know, a confirmation of pregnancy that ends in a loss. And I feel like I had that twice. Luckily for me, my body picked up on the fact that there wasn't a baby in there. So even though it was making this home and a placenta, and it was making, you know, everything that a baby would need to survive, there wasn't a baby. So it was taking longer for my body to realize. My biggest fear was needing a D&C. I had my daughter naturally, although I don't know if I would do it that way again. I might get an epidural next time. It's the surgery part that scares me. I don't want to have a D&C and something happen where it affects my fertility. I want to have more babies, and I just didn't want to have that risk, and it just freaked me out. So I was just hoping, praying that my body was going to pick up on its own and start bleeding, and that's exactly what I did. After my doctor called and she explained my HCG results, I was like, okay. And she's like, have you started bleeding yet? And I'm like, no, I haven't yet. And literally that same exact day I started bleeding. And it was 2 days of just like normal period where I'm like not feeling any cramps even. And I was telling my husband, I just want to start feeling cramps already. And I just wanted to start because this is not what it's supposed to feel like. And I know that. And literally, I want to say it was in 10 minutes, I started having those contractions. A lot of women compare it to a bad period. And I guess that's true, but it's so much worse than that. Like, it is so painful. The contractions, like, stop you in your tracks. Like, you cannot, like, I can't even explain the pain that they cause. So to me, it was like labor. I'm in the bathroom by myself, crying and passing clots and that are the size of my fist. And yeah, there wasn't a baby in there, but I was pregnant. I had the symptoms, and I had the idea in my head that I was gonna meet a baby, and I didn't get that chance. So I don't want to talk about this kind of stuff and scare anybody into thinking that, you know, this might happen to you. I hope it doesn't happen to you. I hope it doesn't happen to anybody ever again. But unfortunately, it's very common. I think the statistic was like 50% of miscarriages in the first trimester because of blighted ovums, which is what they call the empty gestational sac that I had. And I don't know. I just think miscarriage is common, and it sucks. It sucks so bad. But you can still have babies after it, and it's not your fault. Like, you couldn't have done anything to avoid it. I couldn't have done anything to avoid what happened to me. It's not anything that I did. And I think that I find comfort in that, knowing that it was completely out of my control. I don't think that it's fair that it happens, obviously, but it does. And it sucks because I really feel like pregnancy tests, they're just so tainted for me now. Like, I want to be excited when I see a positive pregnancy test, and I have been, but until you see a doctor and you see the ultrasound and you see a baby in a heartbeat, you don't know what's going on inside your body. And it sucks. It sucks. And I think so many women are so lucky that they don't have to deal with stuff like this, but clearly for me, I don't know. It's happened to me twice for a reason. I don't know what the reason is, but it feels wrong for me not to talk about it. And I don't want to feel any sort of shame. And miscarriage is something that makes people very uncomfortable, and I understand that. And I'm sorry if, it makes you uncomfortable to talk about it, but I just think it's better to be educated and know that there's some things like this that happen, and it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Aspen is gonna be a big sister one day. I just know it. And it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. And yeah, so thank you guys for listening to my story. I'm sure I left out so many things and I'm probably all over the place, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about what happened to me. When I found out that I was having a blighted ovum, the first thing I did was turn on YouTube and watch stories of other women that have been through it. There's some sort of comfort in knowing that you're not alone. Like, there's other women, so many other women that deal with stuff like this and have been through it and have success stories. And I think that that's what we're all looking for, is just that hope that everything's going to be okay, and that, other women have been through it. Yeah, so anyways, thank you guys so much for listening to me ramble on about my story. And if this is something that's happened to you, let me know. Especially if you know me, if you personally know me. And with my first miscarriage, I posted about it on my Instagram story a few months later, and I get so many women to this day reach out to me and ask me questions about it and tell me what they're going through. And I want to continue to be that safe space for women that don't know who to talk to about stuff like this.